Alright, so Overwatch has been out for a while now, and while it was released on console and PC, I think a lot of console players maybe started to realize that they might not be the highest priority market for Blizzard. I think a lot of people kind of understood that from the beginning, with patches being late because of how Microsoft and Sony work, and Blizzard just honestly seeming like they don't really care as much, and that's I guess if you look at Blizzard's history, that's a little bit more understandable because they've always been a PC company, and then they've kind of like ported a couple of their games over to console, mainly to make some more money, and that's what I personally see console Overwatch as. Like, not that it's not a good game still, and not that it's not fun to play, but I personally see it as more of a cash grab on Blizzard's part. It's something that I don't see them putting a lot of time and money into later on, and I see them really only focusing on PC. So that being said, I personally know at least, or like personally or indirectly know at least 10 people that have considered or already have swapped from console and moved over to PC for Overwatch because I'm not trying to like incite like platform wars at all, but Overwatch on PC is not it's not even really objectively better. It is a better experience just because of how the game plays, how just how the game was basically built from the ground up to be a PC game. So I know, and I've talked to quite a few people, and I personally have almost always played shooters on console for the past, basically since Halo 1. I've played shooters rather seriously, not like on a competitive level or anything, but pretty try hard on console for I guess like gosh since 2001 really. So over 15 years I've been playing shooters on console, and I will tell you, I will not touch this game on console. So my whole spiel aside, here's some tips that I think I can give to people that are maybe coming from console looking to get into PC that can maybe help the transition a little bit better. So let's start up with some of the main frustrations that you're probably going to feel. All right, so here's what you can expect basically right off the bat if you decide to switch from console to PC. So you're definitely going to have some frustrations with your tracking and feeling like you kind of have potato aim, or just your level of aim is decreased completely, especially if you are a high level player. Button misclicks and struggling to remember the correct keys, and just all around general frustration with your new setup, especially the whole mouse and keyboard aspect if you've never played PC games before. And you're definitely going to be tempted to swap back to a controller, which you definitely should not do if you want to keep playing Overwatch on PC. So that kind of works into the next point where whereas on console, you really only have like your in-game sensitivity to worry about because of how controllers are universal on the platform that you play on. You have to worry about your DPI or CPI on your mouse, and then also your in-game sensitivity on Overwatch. And so what I would personally recommend, even though this is all a personal preference, what I see console players do and what I did is I'm like, all right, I'm playing on a mouse and keyboard, like I need to have my sensitivity high because that lets me like spin around really, really fast, and that's totally what PC players do. Which is actually, while that you can spin around and just generally aim much quicker and with more precision on PC, setting your DPI, or your not necessarily your DPI too high, but your in-game sensitivity too high to allow you to basically just aim completely with your wrist, which is something that I did right off the bat, and it honestly formed bad habits for me personally. And now I'm trying to fix those, and it's taking a while to like kind of work my way down. I would set your DPI like around 800 to 1000 on your mouse, and set your in-game sensitivity on Overwatch to less than 10. And while this might feel like pretty slow initially, and you might have to aim with your arm a lot more, that's ultimately where you kind of want to be for a shooter. And it's a lot easier, I think, to start lower and then work your way up a little bit than to start where I did, which was right around like whatever the default is, like 20 or something like that, and then try and work down, because then your aim feels really sluggish and it gets really frustrating. So it's better to start lower, um, and then work your way up a little bit than to start really high and try and work your way down. And I'm playing right now at 800 DPI and like 9 sensitivity in game. I still feel like the in-game sensitivity is a little too high, so I kind of want to tweak that a bit. But ultimately, it's personal preference. But I would really recommend starting with less than 10 and going from there. Probably going under 10. You could start right at 10, start at 5, work up, down, whatever feels good for you. But it really is better to make sure you start with a lower sensitivity because it does help with your tracking. And if you play with a big mouse pad, which everyone should, then the lower sensitivity is okay because it translates your movement over a lot larger of an area to allow you to be a lot more precise and fine-tune your movement more than what you can with really high sensitivity, because then you're just aiming with your wrist and there's really a small range of movement in which your mouse responds to, which is the same issue that you run into with a controller, is that the analog stick is so short that you don't have that much wiggle room to input movements. So the same thing kind of happens with just aiming with your wrist, but it's in a different way because you're aiming so fast that it causes all these other issues. So yeah, so start with a lower sensitivity and go from there. So since we're talking about your aim, if you can get a gaming mouse, I mean, they're really not like, don't get a wireless mouse just because it causes unnecessary input lag, but get a gaming mouse, or at least a moderately well-made mouse. It doesn't necessarily have to be like SteelSeries or Razer. It needs to have a good sensor in it. There's plenty of videos that talk about what are good sensors. I mean, like, it's probably best to like go to Best Buy, like try it out, see what kind of mouse like feels good, then go from there. But along those lines, get a gaming mouse, and also get, since like I mentioned earlier, get a fairly large mouse pad, as long as you have the room. If not, that's kind of unfortunate, but it is really nice to have a big space to be able to move. I know Best Buy has even though like it's probably better to get stuff off the internet, Best Buy is a good place to go like test stuff out because they have their stuff set out. At least the ones around me do. You can also get gaming mats from there too. So yeah, get a mouse, a good mouse. Mechanical keyboard isn't absolutely necessary, although I really love my mechanical keyboard. It feels a lot better than my just like standard membrane keyboard did. And also with those there's a lot of like for my PC, at least my first one, my first mouse and keyboard were like a kit that you can get on Amazon. They look really cool, but the mouse crapped out in less than a year. So just go buy like a mouse by itself. Like, don't necessarily just get them in like the cool, like flashy, like RGB kits that you can get on Amazon. Get a proper gaming mouse as long as you can afford one. Yeah, because it's probably the most important thing. You can get away with a membrane keyboard, but you really can't get away with a bad mouse that doesn't have like DPI settings. It's just not very great. And make sure it's wired, because wireless does increase your input. And that kind of brings me into kind of like how to set up your Overwatch settings for playing, I guess, well. So depending on what kind of PC you have, you may or may not be able to run this game on like really high graphics with like really solid frame rate. So what I would personally recommend is get your frame rate to at least 120 FPS. Even if you only have a 60 hertz monitor, you can't see that frame improvement if you're playing on a 60 hertz monitor and you're running your game at 120 FPS. But you can definitely feel the increased responsiveness just of the game. like I can definitely tell like if my game drops from like the $140 running at to something below 100, it just feels really sluggish. So yeah, try and get your frames as high as you can. Um, Probably much past 120 isn't going to make that big of a difference, especially if you're not playing on like a 144 hertz monitor. Um, which also brings me to another point. Don't play on a TV with gaming. I mean, if you're going to build a PC and play, I think hope you would get a monitor at least, because monitors are just, they have lower input lag. They're better, especially if you're playing on a PC. So get a decent monitor. Um, Assuming you can afford one. I'm assuming you're going to build a PC, or if you're playing on a laptop, that's going to be a little bit of a struggle. But I'm assuming that you're going to build a decent PC. I mean, this game will run on basically nothing, so you don't need to build that big of a like beast of a PC. But just make sure you get a decent monitor that has low response time, stuff like that. And so finally, we're going to come into hero selection and just general differences in gameplay that you're probably going to see between console and PC. So while the metas might be roughly the same, the game is just faster on PC because of just how people can aim faster. It just progresses faster. It's harder. People are better at aiming in close quarters than they are on console because they can move their reticle around faster because of just how much more space they have, and they can do it with better accuracy. So on console, like some of the gameplay I've seen is like tracers are really hard to shoot. It's harder to play tracer probably on PC because people can aim more precisely on you, and they can track you while you're blinking. So stuff like that. What I personally recommend is picking a hero. I wouldn't go straight for like the super aim-based heroes right off the bat, like a McCree or a Widow or stuff like that. I would go with probably Soldier 76 is a good DPS hero to start with because he's like basically like you're playing Call of Duty, and like his skills are easily to translate, and you can kind of take advantage of his of your, like if you're a high level console player, you're gonna have the game sense and the map knowledge and the movement aware, like where you need to be, positioning, stuff like that. Regardless, that doesn't really change, but your just aim won't be quite there. Soldier's a good way to start because he's self-sustaining. He's got a sprint. He lets you take advantage of stuff like that. When I first started playing, I played a lot of Tracer because I found that my movement and my game awareness and my positioning and stuff like that was still really strong because I've been playing shooters for so long. But what wasn't strong was my tracking, and even though Tracer's, this might sound silly, but Tracer's dependent on tracking, but while Tracer is doing the most when she's getting picks, the way she's designed is she's also kind of a disruptor and a flanker that I found I could use her abilities and my game awareness to not necessarily always get like the kills that I should be getting, but I could just kind of exist behind them and just be like a little mosquito or a fly that just harassed their backline constantly, that forced them to deal with me, and I could use her abilities to my advantage to be able to do that. So heroes like Tracer, Reaper is another one. Heroes like that are good ways to allow you to start to get some practice with mouse and keyboard and using the different control schemes and just aiming in general, than just jumping right into like Widowmaker or McCree, who are both heavily dependent on your ability to land flick shots. So the more forgiving heroes, I guess, stuff like that. You should probably be prepared to spend a decent amount of time on the practice range, shooting practice bots. That helped me a lot, and also there's a lot of videos that show you like ways to kind of help you improve your aim, and those tend to revolve around Ana bots, like Gibraltar or something, where you try and land headshots. Like that's a good way to improve your aim. So you're going to probably spend a lot of time practicing, but the main thing you really need to focus on is that don't get frustrated with your if you play at a high level and let's say you're a grandmaster player or a master player on PC, you end up in like high gold or low platinum or something because you just can't aim as well. Don't get frustrated because you will get better the more you play. Your game sense, your map awareness, your movement, stuff like that will end up your hand, like your brain will know what you want to do, but your mouse hand will really struggle in doing that, and it does get frustrating. Trust me, it can be frustrating, and I'm finally now getting to the point where I don't like flank people and have like this like the whole team like right where I want them is like Tracer or something, and then I just end up killing nobody because my aim was poor. I actually end up I almost think that now if I played myself with a like controller with like aim assist and everything in like another game, or like let's say Destiny for example, I could beat myself with mouse and keyboard now. So just stick with it. I know it gets frustrating. Trust me. I've gone through those times where it just feels so aggravating because you do all the right things and then you just can't actually finish off the kills because your aim is bad. But it gets better, especially the more you play, the more you practice, and then eventually I think you will appreciate the decision to switch from console to PC, because ultimately I think this is where the developers really intended Overwatch to be played. It's where I see the future of Overwatch. It's where I feel Overwatch is just best when played on PC. So yeah, so I hope this helps if you're considering switching. I'm really not trying to incite any platform wars. I just want to say that you can have fun on both, but if you are thinking about switching, I would do it, especially if you have a PC that can run it well. Yeah, so thanks for watching. Hope this helps.